This kid's got ridiculous power.
The rookie strikes again.
Welcome to the show.
And welcome back to another episode of the AstrosFuture podcast here on the Believe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Price, also known as AstrosFuture. Find my work at AstrosFuture.com and find me on X at AstrosFuture.
I'm your co-host, Kenny Van Doren. You can also find me on X at The Vandalorian.
So, Kenny, we're recording this on a Monday. We're getting close to September. The Astros got a 2-game lead in the AL West. Minor league seasons are kind of winding down. I believe they got 2 weeks left of games going starting tomorrow. So 12 games for single A, high A. Hooks have a little bit longer than I think the Sugarland still has about another month left. But we're at the point now where we've seen a lot of prospects kind of go up and down throughout the season. And we've seen the contributions that we've gotten from some, but we're at the point now where the Astros are going to be making that final push in September and trying to figure out who's going to be the ones to help them. Obviously, can't make any trades at this point, but who are they going to potentially rely on to come in and help? And we've seen the need for pitching, and based on the way Arrighetti and McCullers and Javier and those guys are throwing, and it seems like they're going to be cycling arms up quite a bit just to kind of recover some of those middle innings. So we wanted to kind of talk about maybe 2 or 3 prospects here that we think can come up from the minor league system and help the playoff push in September. So, Kenny, I'll let you go first with your first choice of who you think can get called up in September and help that playoff push.
I think it has to be AJ Bluebaugh. I think that's just the most obvious from the opportunities that he's had since his MLB debut, pitching on August 5th against Miami, 5 innings out of the bullpen, 4 more innings against Baltimore out of the bullpen, giving up some runs here or there, but he's really eating innings. And I think I wish I could find the tweet. I should have looked it up before we got on here. But someone even compared him like Brad Peacock in 2017. He's just going to come in and just sweep up everything that you need. And they're just going to option him back down this season. But I think once the rosters expand, you get an extra pitcher, an extra position player. You can't go wrong with AJ Bluebaugh with how much this team just needs guys and just fresh arms left and right. If that's in a rotation with a spot start, or if that's coming in the bullpen and just eating up innings, something like Ryan Gusto has done this year before he was traded to Miami, and even Brandon Bielak a couple years ago. So it's not like trying to short anything of AJ Bluebaugh's potential of what he could possibly be in this rotation. But for the September and what you're trying to accomplish, and if you run into an instance where you've already had to sign a couple of relievers off the street, this is going to be your guy that's really going to help you get through it.
Yeah, and he's been really good this year. I know he had some struggles in AAA after dominating last year, but I think he's had 3 appearances with the Astros, and we've seen him run it up to 98. I know we've seen that a little bit before, but really good to see that. Was it Friday or Saturday he pitched where I think 4 innings in relief, and those are huge innings when the starter gets shelled earlier and gets pulled, and the Astros ended up winning the game. But to see Bluebaugh, I think he's for sure a guy. He's already on the 40-man roster. Easy decision for him to bring him up. And you're right, having that need for a guy to eat innings in the middle, and that's not a shot at Bluebaugh. I think he could be a starter in this league, and I think he probably will be at some point. But the need right now is probably going to be that middle relief. So I'll kind of transition to the next guy, and it's another pitcher, one that I think at the beginning of the season I would have thought he was already up by now, just given the way that we know pitchers get up and down a lot with injuries and things. But Miguel Ullola, last year at this time he was making his AAA debut, and when Sugarland was making a push for the AAA championship, came up, had a couple good outings. I think he pitched in I don't remember if it was the AAA championship or it was the Pacific Coast League, but
it was the PCL championship game. So it was game 2 because it's best of 3. Because we were at that game, and I forgot who. I think Gusto got scratched because he went up to the big leagues soon after, but ended up not making his debut though.
Yeah, so he was, he and then just based on that and based on his performance last year, he kind of felt like, okay, this is going to be a guy who's going to debut at some point in 2025 for the Astros, because we know injuries are going to happen. And unfortunately, he had some struggles really with this command. I know at one point he over it was 9 or 10 outings, he walked 41 in 41 innings, which obviously is not going to get you on a big league roster, but he still misses bats. 109 strikeouts in 89 innings this year, only allowed 61 hits, and his most recent outing was probably his best one of the season. 6 innings, allowed 2 hits, walked only 1, struck out 5. He would have to get added to the 40-man roster, which is a decision the Astros are going to have to make one way or another this winter, no matter what. But I would say that's one prospect I think can come up and help. I don't think they would use him maybe in the starting role. Obviously, he does have plenty of experience coming out of the pen, just with the Astros doing the piggyback. But that's another guy I think could come up and help him in September.
It felt like even like a couple weeks ago, just texting on the side, not putting this, on social media anywhere, but it felt like it was over. It felt like the starting role for him was just slipping away. Looking back just on August 8th, of course, some of these outings are, on the road or, in some of these PCL just hitter havens, but 3 walks, 5 walks, 5 walks. I mean, there were 3 straight starts, 3 straight outings where he had 5 walks. And only 2 of those did he best him with his strikeouts. And one of them was with 11 strikeouts in that no-hit 5 1/3 innings that he had earlier this summer. And then he just comes out in his last start, 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 hit by pitch, 1 walk, and 5 Ks. That's the Miguel Yola that people have been looking for forever. And it feels like, he's, right when you think maybe he's going to start slipping away and into like a relief role, which I think he could still be dominant at. He just kind of finds this spark of command. And I think that's just the reason that you're going to continue to kind of see him in those starting roles until, they have to force him out. He's 23 years old now. But still, I mean, he has all the tools. He just has to be consistent with the strike zone.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's two arms we just mentioned. One we've seen, one that we expected to see by this point, but high potential arms and guys that I think will be with the Astros for a while. I expect Blue Ball to get a lot of innings next year, and hopefully Lola too. But we got some pitching help. And I don't know if your next one's a pitcher. We're going off the top here, off the dome, as I said via text. Made sure Kenny knew what that was. He did. So we're going off the top with our next selection here. But Kenny, I have a really random one that I think is like completely off the wall, probably not realistic, but one I think would be fun to see that I think could maybe be a spark. But who's your next one? And then I'll give mine.
Can I guess it?
Go ahead.
Is it Ethan Pecco?
Nope.
It's not Ethan Pecco. Nope. Well, I was thinking, someone off the dome, maybe someone who would have a bigger role just going into the later in the second half or just into September. I don't even know if this is like really off the dome, but I mean, what if Jacob Melton just has a bigger role? And I don't know if that's, maybe too much out there, but with the Cam Smith struggles, up and down. And I mean, he's spoken about it before or recently too, with Chandler Roma at the Athletic, just with where he's kind of been, you really haven't leaned too much into him since his injury, but I mean, how much of that will play into platoon in right field? And I think that's maybe a big thing that comes with it. You can have him and Yordan in the same lineup. That's 2 more lefties than you had most of this season. I don't think Jacob Melton would probably be a starter right now for the Astros, but I think in a platoon role against a lot of right-handed pitching that they're going to see in the next month, I think that's a big one, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm completely there with you. And I think, Melton is a guy that I think we wanted to see he hasn't had an opportunity to get like, a month's worth of starts, just whether it be injury or platoon in. And he's a guy that I think if he got that extended period, we might be able to see him break out. So that would be a good one. Another outfielder I'll throw out there, Pedro Leon. We know he just got back. I think he's officially on a rehab assignment with the Sugar Land, and he's hitting well, 3 for 5 the other night with a double, a homer. So he's another guy I think. But I threw this one, like I said, completely out of left field, and no pun intended with the outfield here. But if the Astros wanted to maybe try to find lightning in a bottle or something, the first name that kind of jumped in my mind was Zach Cole. Now he just got promoted to AAA, and I know the Astros have not really brought guys straight up from AA, and we'll see how many games he gets in AAA. But when the guy's hot, like he's on fire. He's almost unstoppable when he gets hot, and we kind of have seen that over the last probably 2 or 3 weeks. But overall, 868 OPS in AA, 19 doubles, 6 triples, 14 home runs. Like he does have some strikeout concerns, and we know that he's going to swing and miss. But man, like when the guy connects, he hits the ball really hard, really far, and has good speed. He's hitting 342 in August over 17 games, and let's see what his numbers are against righties. I mean, 294 against right-handers, 204 against lefties. So you talk about the platoon and maybe playing some outfield with Cam Smith and getting some at bats against righties. I do think it's more likely Jacob Melton is the one that gets those at bats to get against righties. But like Cole just strikes me as a guy that like it's a risk, But if they wanted to try to find lightning in a bottle, try to find a guy that can come up and give a spark, Cole could be a guy like that.
I don't hate it. I mean, I was going to bring him up actually in our next segment with what we're going to talk about after this. But even with those like offensive numbers and the average number, I mean, that's a pretty high one for a guy that has a 35 hit tool. I mean, that's a little bit surprising just how much he's turned that around. Almost like in my mind, it's like a Derek Fisher situation. He's not the same like prospect status that Derek Fisher had in the Astros system. Yeah. But if he takes up your last bench spot going into October, if you make the postseason, which I mean, there's still high expectations for the Astros to make it that far. He's a 70 grade runner. I mean, he plays the outfield so well. I don't think you really have to worry too much about getting him consistent at bats at that point. You're just really looking at a guy that can come in and run for Yainer Diaz or, Jordan if you really need to, if you know they're not, those two aren't going to hit again. And then you have a guy that can play really solid defense. And I think that's a really big plus. And I like the idea. It's a really out of left field. And I think that is definitely someone that could probably be in there, especially if you don't have Jake Myers. What if that that doesn't transpire, that he's not ready and healthy to come back?
Yeah, now I want to throw this out there, and I didn't even look at it completely before coming up with this, but we talk about how hard it is to hit in Corpus Christi, and especially as a left-handed hitter, just with the bay blowing in. But in Corpus Christi, he's hitting 225, but on the road he's hitting 313. It's not like they're going on the road and playing in elevation in New Mexico or California or anything, Las Vegas, hitting 313 with an OPS over 1,000 on the road. 9 homers, 33 runs batted in, and then like I said, against righties hitting 294. With an OPS over 900, and then against lefties, he struggled a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, he's been in the system a little while. He kind of had high expectations for him last year, dealt with some injuries, and then this year a little bit. But he's really came on strong recently. So, like I said, that would be out of left field. I don't see it being realistic. But if the Astros wanted to try something crazy and get somebody up, I don't know, Cole could be an option.
The only thing I would have to say is we're going to be talking about this right now. And then 2 weeks from now, when we look at his numbers, he's going to be hitting 114 in the PCL. And that's just going to be our luck. But yeah, I think that is, such an interesting case, Jimmy, because it even could be was it in 2020, Chas McCormick came up and didn't even play in that first series that he was up with the Astros. Maybe there is an opportunity for Cole to really sneak on the roster just tools wise. I think it's, we can both agree it's probably a long shot of that happening, but I do think it is very intriguing that he could really lean into a lot of those speed and defensive attributes that could really help the Astros in the long run.
Yeah, and I think that maybe one of the biggest things working against him for that would be the guy that's in front of him that's also a left-handed hitter, also a good defender, and also provides speed, is Jacob Melton, already on the 40-man roster, already has some at-bats. So realistically, what Cole would hopefully provide you is what Melton could also hopefully provide you. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Obviously, they'll get a couple more players here in September, and we'll see what they do for the playoff push. But the next kind of big thing on the minor league schedule, more so than the schedule ending, is the Arizona Fall League, which is always a fun time because the teams get to send roughly 7 guys over to the Arizona Fall League, and they get to play against really good competition. And we've seen some guys kind of take a big Arizona Fall League season and expand on that the following year and have a big year. So Kenny and I wanted to kind of do a draft style of prospects we think that could be selected. A couple things to keep in mind here. They're not going to send, I wouldn't rule it out, I guess, but you look at a guy like Bryce Mayer, who's at probably almost 90 innings at this point, which is probably the most he's ever thrown in his career. He's probably not a realistic candidate for the Arizona Fall League because they're already kind of put him on the development list, probably because he has thrown so many innings for the first time in his career. And then same thing for guys that have really played, all through Joseph Sullivan, first full season, started in spring training all the way to now. Those guys are great prospects, but I don't necessarily see them getting an Arizona Fall League call because they really need the time off. But Kenny, I'll let you go ahead and go with your first selection.
Yeah. So we're going snake. Is that the idea?
Either way.
Okay. So my first one, I think this is one that's kind of came as a surprise for the two of us, just in recent months. And I even texted you the other day. I was like, okay, someone else possessed this guy's body. It is ridiculous how much he's turned it around. And I even threw it over to Brian McTaggart MLB. I was like, you got to ask someone about this whenever you write about your next prospect roundup. And for those who don't know, the Astros will be with the Giants, Mets, Nationals, and Tigers with the Scottsdale Scorpions this fall. So my first guy, and I have to go with him, Luis Baez. He's on a tear this month. It was a guy that was hitting, below the Mendoza line, well below for most of the year. And then on July 10th, he finally got over. He was finally, petering around 200 for a little bit, fell back down on July 30th. And then it's just been on a tear these last couple of weeks. He is hitting 415 on the month, 478 on base percentage, 585 slugging. This is a guy who really started off late into the season. He didn't get to Corpus Christi until June 3rd. He got kind of delayed. There was a lot of things that they wanted him to work on after spring training, just really was kind of lagging behind in his development. And they didn't really want to send him out to an assignment and just have him kind of peter there and then just fall off. It loses all your confidence. It loses everything that you kind of built upon. So he really trained for, April and May, extended spring training, and got to play in some Florida Complex League games before he got to Corpus Christi. And I think just, with not that many games behind him this year, and I think if you really want to build off of something strong that he's putting up at Corpus Christi right now, why not send him to the Arizona Fall League? I mean, this is a guy that was at the top of your system at one point. He's still only 21 years old. He's really fallen into some of the 20s, depending on where you're looking. And I think just with only 53 games under his belt this season, 51 of those being at Corpus Christi with 2 or 3 weeks to go, this is a guy that could really do well, I think, in the Arizona Fall League. It's a hitter's paradise most of the time, and just kind of let him go out there and let him keep doing what he's doing.
Yeah, that would have been like the number one guy on my list for sure. Like you mentioned, the injuries and the conditioning issues or whatever he had early, where he didn't get assigned out. He's only at 53 games, so he fits the mold. Only 2 homers this year, which is crazy for a guy with this power. But great to see him turn it on in August. And yeah, maybe he finishes season strong in Corpus and then gets that opportunity in the Arizona Fall League to go over there. I'll throw it over to the next one. I'll go with another hitter. A guy who I was excited for after the draft, had some good numbers last year, made it up to Double-A, struggled a little bit, and then this year has dealt with some injuries. But Jaron Williams, drafted out Toledo a few years ago, and I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look. I don't recall what injury he was dealing with specifically.
Shoulder. He had shoulder surgery, and they delayed it.
So delayed shoulder surgery, but he's up to 40 games now in Double-A, and he's hitting 274, 7 doubles, 2 homers, 9 stolen bases. Like, he's a guy who's not going to strike out a lot, hit for a little bit of average, has really good speed, and he's only played 40 games. And really, out of those 40, it's been even better recently. Like, he's kind of turned it on, kind of like Luis Baez has. Like, looking in August, he's hitting 347 with an OPS of over 800. So, really kind of in Baez, a similar role where started out the season a little slow, had the injury, got to Corpus. It was a little bit sluggish, and now he's really started to turn it on. And 24 years old, that would be a nice one to send over to Arizona and see if he can kind of keep that streak going and put position himself hopefully to maybe even start next year out in AAA.
I even think it's a position for him to really build off those like offensive strides. And I think he's a big speed guy too. I remember when he was at Asheville, they really talked about his speed being a big tool. He could play himself into a non-roster invite. I think that's a big thing as well for him. If he has a really good fall league, I think he's probably on the bubble right now to be considered for one, because you have a lot of guys that maybe you'll sign, the Luis Guerreros of the world or just anyone else at the minor league level that you might bring in. But of the 40-man roster, I mean, there's not too many guys that people don't already know about, but some of those guys that are at Double-A and Triple-A that aren't on the 40-man roster yet, or not, maybe not even get added to it soon. I think he's in that group that could really vie for a spot.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like, those would be 2 really fun ones to watch. Baez and Williams over there. So if we're gonna stick with the snake, I'll go ahead and give my next one. And there's a few that I've really kind of thrown around, and they're all on the pitching side. So I hate to go with like the obvious one, but like the obvious one to me is Ethan Pecco. And I think mainly because he, last year, minor league pitcher of the year, 96 innings. Well, this year he's only at 59. Now he is in AAA, and they still have probably about a month left of the season. So we'll see how much he throws. But just if the Astros wanted to get him some extra innings, get him prepared, because I do think he's a guy that can have like a big impact next year if we're looking for which prospect can probably have the biggest impact in 2026 for the Astros. Given the caliber of prospect he is. But yeah, he's at 59 innings right now, 65 strikeouts. The strikeout numbers have been good in AAA, but he's allowed 18 hits in 14 innings. But just another guy I think the Astros could maybe want to get some more innings out of him, push him closer to that 100 total, maybe where he was last year, just to prepare him for 2026.
And he could be a guy in a role where you only get designated, I think, 1 or 2 starters among your group that your pitchers you send. And maybe they send a couple of starters that were really banged up, because my next guy will be a starter that I go to. And they have an instance where, they let him run 2 or 3 innings, see what he can do just in that short amount of time. If the velocity can, spike up a little bit, what else is he going to use just weapons wise? And I think that's a big thing that could play into that. Cause like you're mentioning, he's through 96 innings last year. I don't think he's really going to get close to that. And even if in a starting role, I don't think he's probably going to exceed 5 innings, 6 innings in some of these starts if he was pitching the Arizona Fall League. So I think that's a great selection there. Pitching wise, I mean, there's some other guys just in, the top group that have been kind of banged up with injuries. Jackson Nezu, who's still at Corpus Christi, was one that came to mind. But it's a guy that we were pretty excited about last year, just because, I mean, finding him on day 3 in the 13th round in 2023, you kind of, wow, should we really expect too much? And he was just pretty lights out in Fayetteville and Asheville, and kind of, up and down when he was in Corpus Christi. But I thought he was maybe out for the year. He went to the 60-day IL in the minor leagues, but came back, and that's James Hicks. Really like the changeup that he has there. If they're going to, look at some starters, guys that might be on that bubble like we're talking about for non-roster invites, that's the guy that I'm looking at. I mean, they've been looking at him even before he was at South Carolina. They do like him a lot. I think a lot of his stuff is pretty much middle of the road, but that changeup, like I said, is one of the best ones that he has. And I think, they're looking at a guy that could be, an innings eater at some point, just with how deep he can probably get into starts.
Yeah, and it's tough when a guy has he had a phenomenal season last year. Make play or pitching across 3 levels, good walk rate, good strikeout rate, and then deals with some early injuries and kind of like he's the forgotten pitcher from last year, or from the draft 2 years ago. But he's only thrown 28 innings at this point, 5 walks, 22 strikeouts in Double-A. That would be a good one to see, and I mean, he definitely needs the innings, and a guy I was super excited about, and has had some good performances as Double-A. It's not like it's all been bad, but yeah, I mean, I think that would be a good one to go with. I'll go. Oh, sorry, you get one more pick.
Snake
draft.
Snake draft.
You got it. So
for this one too, I'm going to stick just in the pitching realm as well. Ryan Furcucci. I don't know. This is one of those ones where it's kind of shot in the dark if he actually will be ready. Texted someone like 2 or 3 weeks ago about it, and they said actually he's ramping up right now. He's pitching in instructs. It's just a matter of is he going to be in a spot where they want him to face competition, going in not late, but that part of the year, just because he's been ramping up and coming back from Tommy John surgery they suffered had in college, so he still hasn't made his pro debut. ETA is set for 2027, and I think that's a fair one. And I don't know if he'll be a part of that group that gets brought in for a non-roster invite, just because they probably want to keep him slow. But if they want to get him some innings against some live batters that aren't just complex guys, I think this is a good spot to do it. He still has a 60-grade fastball on him. I think that's just something that they probably want to see play against some of these big-time talent.
Yeah, don't get my hopes up with that one. That gets me excited. It'd be great to see Furcucci pitch a little bit in the fall league, and we get video out there, we get good numbers. It more data out of that than we're going to get out of Single A. So that would be awesome if he's ready and he can pitch. I think he's still rated as one of the top pitching prospects in the system. And I know that for those that don't know, he was drafted in the 3rd round and had that Tommy John shortly before the draft. But, everything that you read about him, he was projected as positioning himself to be a 1st-round pick last year. And just with the injury, fell off a little bit, but great numbers. Man, I would be pumped to see him finally get to pitch over in Arizona. So that'd be great. I'll go with another pitcher to close it out. And we talked about some starters. I do think we've seen the Astros send some relievers. Last year, I think it was Alejandro Torres who got some run in Arizona Fall League, undrafted free agent. So I'm going to throw another undrafted free agent reliever out there, and I'm going to say Hudson Leach. And he had some dominant numbers in high A. 35 strikeouts in 20 innings, 3.98 ERA, which we know is a tough place to pitch in Asheville. Got promoted to Double-A, and I think he pitched 1 or 2 games there and then ended up on the injured list. I don't really remember what the injury is, but he's back now. He's back pitching. He's at 30 innings for the year. Last year, he was at 38 innings in relief. So when we're looking at innings, he's probably got a few more outings to go. But if the Astros wanted to send a reliever that has some pretty nasty stuff, and we've seen some of the player development account, I think, has tweeted about him a few times, but really nasty stuff in relief. And if the Astros wanted to get him some more innings, get him stretched out a little bit more, preparing for next year, which I think we were hoping the same for Alejandro Torres, but next year where it's a Double-A, Triple-A, hopefully season, getting him ready for the majors. But that's who I would close it out with, Hudson Leach.
Yeah, I mean, what an impressive jump in command. Just going from 49 strikeouts and 31 walks to 51 strikeouts and 19 walks. Something clicked for him. Is just another one of those UDFA talents that they're finding at the college pitching level. And I think you really like what you're seeing there. He's not really giving up many extra base hits either. He's only given up 1 double and 1 triple and 2 homers this year. I think that's a big thing that plays into those 30 innings that he's had out of relief. And, he's kind of extended some of those 30 innings and 26 appearances. I think he's a very unheralded pitcher in the system, and that just comes with being a little bit older. He's 23. at Double-A, and he's a relief pitcher. He's not going to get all the credit in the world, but I think he's having one of the better years. Probably want to see that WHIP kind of drop down a little bit just on the season. But overall, I think he's, in a good spot kind of moving forward. And some of those numbers are inflated a tiny bit just from his rehab starts in the complex league. Rehab outings, excuse me.
I'm trying to think, and I know it's close. It's like maybe weeks away when they announce. Do you remember when they announced the rosters?
It's like the second or third week in September. It's usually like around my birthday. Like one year it was, and I thought that was like the best birthday present ever. Could actually look through them. I think it was 2023. So I would say like 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks into September.
Yeah, true prospect guy right there. If that's what he's happy for his birthday, Arizona Fall League assignments. All right, before we close it out though, Kenny, there's one guy I feel like I got to hit on him because it's been a great year for him, and especially over the last I guess probably 3 weeks since he's been in Double-A. But Lucas Spence, undrafted free agent. I know I texted you about him yesterday, and started out the year pretty decent in Fayetteville, 286, gets up to high A where he kind of starts showing some power, 10 stolen bases, OPS of over 700. But he's played 16 games in Double-A, batting in front of Yordan Alvarez this last week. But he's hitting 298, OPS of over 1,000 now, 7 doubles, 3 homers, and he's at the point in the season where he's got 30 doubles, 9 homers, 23 stolen bases, and OPS of over 800. As an undrafted free agent, to make it, we saw some guys last year, Pascal Ferreras make it up to Double-A as Mr. Irrelevant, but undrafted free agent to go from single A, high A up to Double-A and having that kind of success, man, it's such an awesome find by the Astros to be able to get a guy like that. And I text you, I don't know what he's going to end up being, but getting good minor league baseball players, especially as undrafted, it's extremely impressive. And Spence has had a phenomenal year. Super excited for his future. So I just wanted to shout out him real quick after like a really nice 3 weeks that he's had in Corpus Christi in Double-A.
17 total hits, 10 for extra bases. Like we're talking about this. This is a hard league to hit in Texas. The Texas league is make or break. Like that is just how it goes. And it's not like he's just swinging for the fences. He has 17 walks, 18 strikeouts. I think those are good numbers too. Just all around, he's been a very polished hitter. I think people that are probably watching him, you just see the tools out there. He's a 60 grade runner. He's a 60 grade arm. It's not just the offense. He's a very good outfielder as well. And when it comes to that, people probably watch, they're like, oh, he's probably drafted in the 5th round. And like you're saying, great value. There's another guy that's signed for only $150,000 just in that UDFA category. You just probably want to see him make it a little bit further. And I think an added plus to it, he's left-handed. That's exactly what the Astros need at the top of the system.
Yeah, he's at 102 games now, and he's drawn 65 walks. So he's hitting 258 overall, which is a little lower. It's better in Double-A right now, but with the 384 on base percentage. So kind of he doesn't have maybe the big time speed or power like a Sullivan, but in terms of providing some pop left-handed in the outfield, being able to draw walks, yeah, he's doing exactly that. So another great find by the Astros. All right, Kenny. Well, I don't have anything else unless you do.
I was going to say just some honorable mentions that like I said, Zach Cole was a guy I wanted to talk about, or not talk about, but he was a guy I was considering just in my part of the draft. And then Neomar Ochoa Jr., I haven't heard, exactly what's happened there. He had another injury, lower body that came up, and it had nothing to do with, what happened in spring training. And, if he's available, I think he's a guy you might want to see out there as well.
Yeah, no, I honestly, we talk about Hicks, kind of flying under the radar, forgetting about him. Ochoa too, great year last year as a teenager in Fayetteville, and been a rough year for him. But yeah, that'd be a good one. So hopefully we'll see those rosters come out here in a few weeks. And when you do, just think about it. Send Kenny a message. It'll probably be close to his birthday, so he'll appreciate the birthday wishes. But that's going to do it for today's episode. So if you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. As always, thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back for our next episode of the AstrosFuture podcast, covering your Astros in the minor league system.